Off last time with the eraser tool. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which is the gradient tool, which I think I had just started talking about, but I didn't actually show how to do it yet. Now, the gradient tool will fill an area with two different colors, and it will kind of blend between them. Or you can set it to blend from one color to transparent. If you go up to the option bar up here, you can see the different types of colors you can blend together. Over here, these little icons here represent the type of gradient. This is probably referred to as kind of like a linear gradient, where you're just going from one color to another, almost like a value scale. This is a radial gradient, where you have like a color in the center, kind of like a specular, circular kind of a shape, and then it blends outward from there. These other ones, honestly, I don't really use that much. This one, I think, starts off something in the middle and it goes off out from the middle up and down. So it's like still two colors, but it's, it's like a reflection. So it goes from, it's called the reflected gradient. I don't know how else to explain it, but I can demo it. All right. So how the gradient tool works is you simply click and drag, right? If I were to just do this and drag across, it would cover the whole thing. Because right now, my foreground and background colors are red and yellow, so it's going to go from red to yellow. And it's going to always follow the direction that I drag. So if I drag up to down, it's going to fill the gradient, or down to up, I'm sorry, it's going to go down to up. If I decide to drag it at an angle, it's going to go at an angle. Okay. The radial gradient looks something like this. So it's going to always start from wherever you begin, where you make your first click, and go out from there. The further you drag, the bigger the center is. This is an angle gradient. I don't really use this one, but I don't know what use you would have for that. Here is the reflective gradient. See how it kind of does it on both sides? I usually just use the first one. Now, if you're going to fill your box with it, see, obviously that was just filling the entire thing because I didn't have a selection active. So you remember, you always want to go to your background copy to make your selections, but don't actually put anything on that layer. So I've got my magic wand. I'm going to click these two faces. And I'm going to get my gradient tool. I don't really want to use red and yellow though. I'm going to pick I don't know. A green and a yellow. Now, before I do anything else, now that I've made my selection from my background layer, I'm going to create a new layer. Because I don't want to put anything on my template. Now I'm going to go get the gradient tool and just drag. See, and it filled in the two areas that I have selected. It basically treats multiple selections as one big thing. So for example, if I did a left to right one, it would do something like that, because it's, even though it's not displaying what's happening in the middle, it's still treating it as one selection. So this part here in the middle is cut off where the transformation happens, if that makes sense. All right. So that's basically the gradient in a nutshell. So, if you want to put something else in your background other than just a flat color, a gradient is a possibility. We will also talk about paste intos in a little bit, and that's another thing you can do. All right, the next tool the other thing I guess I should mention is also the paint bucket tool is bundled with the gradient tool, and this will just fill in an area instantly instead of having to do an edit fill. It works very similar to the magic wand, so it works based on enclosed shapes. So right now I've got green as my foreground color. If I actually go in and make another selection, let me go back to my background layer, select these two sides, and I'll select the handles as well. Yes, thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Don't need to know it right now, though. Okay. Go back up here. Now with the paint bucket, I simply click on the selection and it automatically fills it. So it's like anything in the selection. So it's sort of a way of doing a fill without having to go up to edit. All right. So that's all that is. All right, next one down. We've got blur, sharpen, and smudge. I think the best way to demonstrate these is to open a layer that actually has, let's do this. Different character this time, Spider-Man, but this will be good to demo with. All right, the blur tool does what it says. It just takes an area and makes it blurry. So if I keep, well, Rick, you're not annoying Jim Liebler, you're annoying me. Now stop it. All right. This isn't showing up all that well. All right, make sure my strength is set to 100, mode is at normal. If I keep, let me actually switch to a different. I'm going to go to the original image here. Oh, it's not open. If I keep clicking on this, it's going to make this look really blurry. It's starting to do it. I don't know if you can see it. But trust me, that's what it's doing. The sharpen tool does the opposite. It makes a blurry image look more crisp. You just got to keep clicking. It is possible to over sharpen. You can start to see it's in the background in the clouds. It's starting to see how bright those clouds are getting, those pixels. That's because I'm over sharpening, just so you can notice it. You'll be able to tell once I undo it. I'm just clicking it once. See, it's really starting to overexpose those pixels back there. So this was before. My computer is just slow. Sorry. Give it a second. Oh. Irritating. So how about them Cubs, huh? Oh, it's still trying to sharpen. I must have really given it more than I realized. There we go. So Before, after. So obviously when you use it, you want to do it in moderation. Finally, smudge is kind of like finger painting. It just takes pixels and makes it look like wet paint. But my computer is running so slow that it's like running in slow motion. Yeah, it's really I don't know what's going on with this. I closed most of my programs, but it's just taking forever. It's still trying to catch up to what I did. I only clicked like one little thing. All right, so that's smudge. In case you ever want to make something look like wet paint. Make it look like it's melting. Okay, so that's those three. Next, we have dodge and burn and sponge. The dodge tool makes things look lighter in an area. So if you have an area in an image, this is more for like photo retouching and stuff. But like, let's say you get an image from the internet that you want to use and it's a little too dark, get the dodge tool and you can go in and see this building down here that I'm clicking on. See, it's getting a little bit lighter as I click on it. This one too. All right, that's dodge. You don't want to do it too much, but little bits here and there. Burn is the opposite. Burn makes things darker, which makes sense because it's happens when you burn something. So if something is too bright and you want to just bring it down a little bit, like some of these clouds in here, I'm just gonna click on burn a couple times and bring that in. Finally, sponge either saturates or desaturates an area. All right, saturation means that it refers to the vibrancy or the intensity of a color. So if a color is very saturated, it's very bright and full. So if I keep clicking on this, you can see how it's making these reds and oranges super bright and intense. You can already see the difference between just those two. Okay. I can also go the opposite way if I hold down, I think it's the Alt key. Oh no, it's up here, I'm sorry. Under mode, where it says saturate, I can also switch it to desaturate. So if I want to take the color out of something and make it more neutral and pushed back, see if I keep clicking, it's going to eventually make this look like it's black and white. So there you go. All right, the pen tool right here. Probably won't have a big use for this, but I'll go ahead and explain it anyway. The pen tool creates a path. A path is simply a series of vector points that are created by clicking, and then while you have your mouse button held down, you drag your mouse and adjust the angle of the curve like that. It takes some getting used to. A vector is simply like an algorithm, and it's graphics based on algorithms, so that no matter how big they are or how small they are, they retain their character, their sharpness. All right. In Photoshop, we work with rasterized images, and that just means pixelized images. So if you have to be working within a certain resolution in order to have things look good. If your resolution is too low in a rasterized image, it will look choppy. You guys have seen images, like if they're really compressed or really low res, they look all pixelated. You guys have seen that? All right. A vector image doesn't do that because it's based on these algorithms, so that whether you print something the size of a business card or the size of a billboard, it's going to look really crisp. Now, most professional graphic designers work in a program called Adobe Illustrator. And Illustrator uses vector graphics exclusively. Vectors are really useful, but they're also really, really challenging to work with. And that is not something that I would punish you with at this early stage of your art career. So, yeah, we would need a lot more time if we were working with vectors. So we're going to keep it simple and stick with raster. But having said that, this is what it does. Now that I have this, I went back and went to my origin point. So now I have what's called a closed path. Now, if I want to, I could right click on here and I could either make this path a selection or I could fill it just like I could fill a selection. Foreground color. Oh, that's why I didn't. Let me make a new layer. Let's try that again. Fill path. There we go. All right. I can add more points to this. If I go to where the pen tool is and go to add anchor point, I can add more points to this and continue adjusting it. So sometimes if you want to make a good, like a shape for a background element or something to put text over, this might be useful for you. The other cool thing that paths do is going to go into the next tool, which is the text tool. That's a big one you're going to use a lot of. So basically, that's the pen tool. Freeform pen tool lets you kind of just draw a freehand shape, almost like the lasso. And then when you're done, it adds points to it, and then you can go back in and adjust the points. Some people find that easier than having to click and drag and whatever. You can add and delete anchor points. There you go. All right, here's why. We'll get back to this in a second. All right, the text tool. You're going to use this a whole lot. It's the letter T right here. This allows you to add any kind of text onto your image. So once you have the text tool active, you'll notice that the options up here switch to text-oriented options. Over here, you have your font list. As you can see, Photoshop comes preloaded with lots of fonts. If you can't find a font that you like, you can always download free fonts or paid fonts. I have some fonts that I've actually paid to use and paid to own because they're really good and they're really useful. But there's also lots of websites that offer free fonts so that you can download and install and then use them in Word or Photoshop or whatever programs you have. But to use the text tool, this controls the point size. When you're talking about the size of a font, you're always talking in terms of points. So that's what the PT stands for. All right, you can change whether it's the style, whether it's sharp or crisp or whatever. This is your text alignment tools, whether you align your text to the left, to the center, to the right. This is the color palette tool where you can click on that and go in and change the color of your font that you're using. You can either do it that way, or you can just pick a swatch over here. And then finally, this is the text warp tool. I'll get back to that in a minute. All right, so when you have the text tool selected, click and drag to create a selection, just like the marquee tool, except what this is really doing is creating a text field. Now, if you type anywhere in that field, with whatever font you have selected, I think right now I have something called Anki Regular, so I don't know what that's going to look like. 140 points is too big. Let's take it down to 36. And it's not showing up, so let's see what's going on. Come on. What's the deal? Oh, I know why. Well, no, that shouldn't be happening. It's on a different layer. What is the issue? Something is... Oh, there we go. It's huge. That's why. It seems to just want to be giving me these 140 point sizes. I keep telling it to go smaller, and it's not listening to me. Okay. Well, I don't know why this is behaving this way. I'm trying to delete it. All right. I'm just going to delete this layer and try again. Sorry about that. Let's start over. Get the text tool, click and drag. Select your point size. You can either type it in or select from a preset size like this. Then you just click inside the text field and just start typing. And the text will stay within these boundaries. If you need to adjust the size of your text field, you can do that. While you have this active, if you want to change the style, click and drag and go to your list and see it will adjust. It will, change the style of your font like so. You can change the color if you want to. All right. Now, this is where the text warp feature comes in. All right. Whoops. So see, it's easy to edit this type once this is active. If I click on the warp text tool and go up to style, you have different options: arch, bulge, flag, etc. Click on it and you can actually change the level of distortion. So you can, do some cool stuff with, probably not that much, but you get the idea. Switch to 0. All right. Now, getting back to what I said before about paths. if I click on this path here, make it active, and then get the text tool and click on the path, all right? So paths are useful because all right. So I don't know. I mean, it kind of gets messed up in the corners and it's not perfect. You need to adjust that individually, but that's the cool thing about paths is that you can actually type along them and do some cool stuff. All right. So the other cool thing about text, this is a good time to mention layer style. So let's say I'm going to create a new text field over here. And I'm going to let's say I was doing like an activity, like a maze or something, right? And I want to make this text pop out more. Well, okay, whatever. It's just an example. Neighborhood, city, well, I'm sorry. Okay. Now what I can do is two ways. I can either double click right off to the side of the layer itself down here and bring up layer style. This is pretty cool. I can add effects, special effects to the text, like a stroke, which is like an outline. I check on stroke, then I double click and I change the size. For some reason, it's not showing up. Oh, because I had the wrong layer selected because I'm dumb. Sorry. I clicked this. This is what I meant. Let's try that again. Stroke. There we go. That's obviously too big. So you check it once to apply it, then you double click it again to change. You can change the size, you can change the color. You can change whether it's on the outside of the letters or the inside or the center. All right. You can add an outer glow, which is kind of cool to make things stand out. All right, so this is a good way to kind of, and you can do this with shapes and images and anything on a layer. So sometimes if you want to add a little extra oomph to something or make something stand out, layer style is good for that. So again, to access that, you got two things you can do. You can either go up here to layer and go to layer style and they're all there, or you can just double click, not on the text because that'll change the name, just a little below it, and that'll bring it up. All right, so that's the text tool and layer style. I think we got time for one or two more quick things here. All right, path selection, direct selection, that works with the pen tool. That just is whether or not you want to choose the path or just individual points. The line and shape tools here basically will draw a vector shape. So right here, rectangle, for example, I can click and drag that. That's going to make a rectangle that's already got an outline. I can make it dotted, which is helpful with either large dots or small dots. So if I have something I want to cut out or do something, I can do that. That's the other nice thing about using paths, is that you can draw a path around something and then I think set it so that it has a dotted stroke line to it. So that might be useful to you, might not. You can change the size of it. Let's do 6 pixels instead. So much thinner. That's a little better, I think, right? And remember, this is a vector-based shape. Now I can put text inside of this if I want to. I can put a picture, whatever I want to do, okay? And there are different shapes. There are rectangles, ellipses, polygons. There's also the custom shape tool, and up here you can select between, some pre-made shapes if you so desire. Okay? And these are just the controls to do that. You might not have much use for this, but it's good to know. Subtract from shapes, combine shapes, so you can put more than one in there. You just need to play around with it a little bit. All right, the hand tool is just a way of basically scrolling across, right? If you don't want to use the scroll bars down here off to the side, if you're too lazy to do that, just get the hand tool and click and drag, and you can go across your image. All right. Rotate view, you don't need to worry about that. All right, the zoom tool does what it says. Looks like a magnifying glass. You click on it, you zoom in. If you hold down Alt and click, you zoom out. What I just do is use Alt Control plus or minus. So this is Alt Control plus, Alt Control minus. It's a little faster. Okie doke. And that's really it for the toolbar. We've kind of gone through all these. Now the next step is to go across, go over some of these function menus, the image menu. We've already done file, and we did edit, basically. We did, step forward, step backward. We did transform, scale, rotate, etc. The one thing we haven't done is a paste into, which I think I will save for tomorrow because we've only got a few minutes left. All right, a paste into is basically a way to select a side of an image and paste into like a layer mask kind of a thing. All right, but we will save that for tomorrow because the bell's going to ring. So are there any questions about anything we've gone over today? Nope. Okay. Now, let me pause this.